one of the topics is working with your partner and why people are actually afraid of doing it. And my question for you, Reza, would be, why do you think that people usually, well, not even think about it, but don't even want to go into the domain of working with their partner?
Well, I think there are a lot of cliches that people have bought into, especially when it comes to working with their partners. And some of those cliches are things like we are both strong personalities, or we would be fed up if we had to spend more than an hour together on anything serious, or we are both very opinionated, or it's just never going to work out because we don't have matching energies. But there are, of course, always real reasons as well. Maybe your life is set up so that one of you has to stay at home and deal with the kids, or one of you has to work far away. I don't know, maybe you have to travel a lot for work. Mm-hmm. So there could be practical reasons. Maybe you're not interested in the same field. Maybe you don't have the same expertise. You don't have matching expertise. But often I have heard more excuses and cliches than serious reasons. Because I believe if you are living in any Western country or anywhere where capitalism is in your favor, I believe that you could set up a business that could really be working for both you and your partner.
Well, that's obviously assuming, of course, that working together is from a standpoint of setting a business up.
Well, you could always work together in a restaurant. Look, it's a lot more it's a lot more different and probably difficult if you and your partner have to work within the company of someone else. So someone else is the owner and you are both employees of that company.
Yeah, because then you become colleagues, and that's different. That would be different than, well, to be honest, a lot of people do get to know each other from work.
Yes, that's
true. So, for
true.
example, they work somewhere and they happen to be colleagues, and that's how it develops.
Yeah.
That's how their relationship develops. And people usually stay within their domain. They continue their work as they do. But I think it's also the combination of setting something up doesn't already happen often. Mm-hmm. Now, imagine you set something up and you do it with your partner.
Yes.
That's an additional layer on top of it.
Yeah.
Which requires not only the first step of setting up something, but then setting up something together.
So why do you think that people don't work together?
I think
partners or couples don't work together?
Well, except for the obvious reasons you gave as to, well, maybe they're working in different sectors. Maybe then they don't have the same interest. So, for example, if you have someone who has a restaurant, or a restaurant owner or is a chef, and you have someone who's a doctor, well, it's kind of hard to combine those two.
Yeah, you can always
you can cut someone.
You can always start a restaurant inside a doctor's practice.
Or the doctor fixes the person he cuts up, and
No, that goes in a very wrong direction. Okay.
Yeah. So with those examples, obviously, it's very hard to be working together. But I think for people, especially nowadays, because nowadays a lot of people are working from home, right? Since COVID, people have started their own thing more often. You have more young people who are doing 2 different jobs at the same time. So they're working somewhere else, and
side hustles,
or working from behind the computer, basically working from home. And I feel like people are also more comfortable to start their own business now than they have been 10 years before or 20 years before.
And why do you think that?
I think because of the resources. It's easier to find the information. So if you want to start setting up something, it's fairly easy to, of course, depending on which country you are, not all countries are easy, you can quickly go set up your own company, pretty much making a website. Making a website is such a piece of cake now. Like, I was working with my partner.com yesterday and the day before yesterday, and it was Wix. Pretty much everything was done by Wix, and there were templates, everything was easy. So it actually has made everything much easier. So I think because of that reason, people are more comfortable of setting up something for their own. And also, the motivation and the videos that they see on YouTube or other platforms where people are setting up their own thing. So I think more people are setting up their own thing, but I'm not sure if more couples are doing the same. So more couples setting up their own thing.
Well, whether they are or not, that's just a statistical matter.
Yeah.
I think the key question here is, do you think that couples should start their own thing? And if yes, why? Or if not, why?
Yes. So to specifically answer your question, I think if couples are planning on starting something from scratch, if they are not completely different sectors, let's say the example of a restaurant owner and someone who is a doctor, unless they want to change careers, I think it has way more benefits to be working together with your partner than not. So, for example, working together with your partner is something that you can establish something together. So, for example, if you have a baby, let's say, you build something from scratch, right? It's like yours. It's both of yours. And you see it grow, you see it develop, you see a bit of yourself in that kid. So I think with the company or with the business, it's pretty much the same thing because you see a bit of yourself and your partners in that. So when you see that grow up and you see that develop and you see that go towards the success that it could reach, it's way more rewarding than when you would be doing it for yourself. So for example, let's say I would be working on my thing and my partner Reza would be working on his thing. And I would be celebrating my wins separately. My partner would be celebrating his wins separately. I would come home, for example, and something amazing happened.
Yeah.
And I would love to share that with you.
Could not care less.
His mind is probably somewhere else. So, for example, if I come home and I celebrate my wins, I won't be able to actually share that with my partner. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had that as well, where you've done this amazing thing at work, or you've had finally you got the raise or whatever, and you go home and you kind of discuss that with your partner, and your partner is like half there, half in his mind at his work, half on his phone, and actually not very in the moment.
And I think the practical benefits that you're hinting at are things that relate to the amount of time that you spend together. When you have two separate jobs or two separate careers even, which is even worse, you are spending most of your time with other people. Your team members, your competitors, your lawyers, whoever, your customers. And you're doing that in the absence of your partner, your husband or your wife. And it's very difficult to share something like that with your husband or wife if they are not aware of the circumstances at work, if they don't know the same customers, if they don't know the same team members. And so you're going to spend a long time working on your projects. And when you get home, you probably want to eat and sleep. You might have a weekend together to do some chores, but even then, if you have kids or if you have other duties, that time is going to be limited, right?
Yeah, it won't be about work. Most definitely not about work.
And I think that if you want to build a deep relationship, a meaningful relationship with your partner, you need to talk a lot. And for you to get close and talk about deep subjects, well, you have to get the banal things out of the way. You know, how was your day today? How was the weather? How was this? Are you feeling okay? Are you hungry? How was your journey on the train?
Because as you say, you kind of connect more because you already have those empty gaps where you can talk about the banal things.
Yes.
If you are working together, then you've already done that part.
Yeah, so you might walk to work, or you might commute to work together. And during your commute, you just get all basically the morning brief out of the way. Then during tea time, you can actually talk about, oh, this is a nice tea. Or maybe we should, buy the, whatever thing we have to buy for dinner or the party or whatever. Yeah,
so that's for us as well. Whenever our commute to work sometimes is like half an hour. So when we walk to work, we discuss everything that comes up in our mind, whether it could be work or it could be other things.
Yeah.
But that's then at least done.
Yeah.
Right? And then when we get at work,
Yeah.
it's everything that has to do with work,
Yeah.
or when we have a break.
Speaking about work and talking about work, one of the cliches that I've heard from people is that if you work together, all you're going to do is talk about work. And I think that is very wrong, because if you don't work together, you're going to talk about work a lot more, because you have to come home and just get your work stuff out of your mind. So you discuss that with your husband or wife. Only problem is they don't know what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah, and
But-
to add on top of what you're saying, actually, if you calculate it number-wise, you are talking more about work because you're working together.
Yes.
So you have more hours together. You know, so when people say you talk more about work, it's true because you work together.
Yeah.
But if you wouldn't be working together, you would be doing the same with someone else.
Yes. Yes.
You do the work talk with someone else.
Yeah, well, you do the work talk with someone else. That's one thing, because you don't get to talk about the victories, like Mowgli said, or about the problems and the pains that you're facing. So it's not a shared problem or a shared pain, and therefore also not a shared victory.
Yeah.
But I think that exactly for the reason of working together, you're going to have more time talking about other stuff.
Yeah.
You know, because you are already working together and you're talking about work, you open up a lot of space for other stuff. You know, when you're laying there in bed at night, you can actually talk about, you know, the nice dress you want to buy for your wife, or I don't know, some hobby that you want to start, or some concern that you have about tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, how has your experience been for that?
I think the funny thing is, whenever we talk about something, we can go really deep into it.
Yes. And
because
why
we
is
have
that?
the time.
Yes.
Because we have the time. We also, our brains, our minds are already kind of relaxed. We are by the way, the reason why you see Reza being so stiff, a bit stiff,
Yes.
I have to add to it.
I have a stiff back at the moment, so that's why I'm not moving a lot.
Yes, but he's here.
Yes.
Yes, so what I was saying was, so for example, if we talk about something, we can go deeper into it because we have the clear mind of having discussed all the other things that are on our mind. So for example, if we speak about a topic that's actually very abstract, let's say it's a very abstract topic, we can talk about it for 2 hours because we know we have the time to spend on that topic.
Yes.
Because
it's not like I've come home, we only have 1 hour to have dinner and then go to bed.
Yeah.
And so we know that, hey, the day is long, we're going to talk about work anyhow, so we might as well also talk about this for another hour.
Yeah.
We're commuting anyway, or we're having lunch anyway.
Yeah.
So that gives you the opportunity. Now, I think another reason why people don't want to work together, but I think they should, is because they don't think they have the capacity to communicate through difficult problems together when it comes to work. Mm-hmm. And this ties back to when they say we are both two strong personalities, we both want to be decision makers. But the truth is, if you want to build a very deep relationship with someone that is going to last years, you have to communicate difficult troubles anyway. And work actually helps you to structure that. And why?
Yeah.
Well, imagine you're working at home and imagine you're living together, let's say, and you are doing some random stuff in the kitchen and your partner walks in and she says to you, that's not how you should cut the apples, or that's not how you should boil the eggs. Well, and you say, oh, I think this is the best way. And you're going to have an argument about that. Who's right? On the basis of what are you going to judge who has more validity in their argument? It's very difficult to do that. Mm-hmm. So practicing the right conversation about what's the best way to cut apples becomes even more difficult because there is no absolute best way. And unless your partner is some high-class chef with the best cutting skills, maybe you can listen to him or her. But other than that, it's just like my word against yours.
Yeah.
However, when you are working together, you usually are working around or towards a shared goal. And this shared goal exists in a framework of restrictions. So you can't just say anything goes my word against yours. So imagine Mowgli and I are working together. We have to work on a marketing campaign. We are working on an advertisement. Well, one of us is going to be responsible for the success of that advertisement. Okay, Mowgli can have an opinion, for example, on, I don't think the first line of this advert is good. And I could say, look, I've been making the adverts. I've been reading all the books about advertising. I am the person responsible for measuring and making and, publicizing this advertisement. Let me make the mistakes and let me evaluate and live with it, right? At some point, even though Mowgli might want to push and say, no, this is wrong, you have to change it now, at least we know what the goal is, how we can measure the success and the validity of my work in this case, in this example, and then continue onwards. Mm-hmm. And if you do this across multiple subjects and multiple goals, you get to develop communication skills that are actually goal-oriented, not just tit-for-tat arguments. What do you think, Mowgli, about this?
Yes, I think it's... What you're saying is actually adding another layer or level of... how do you call it?
Practicality?
Not even practicality.
Structure?
Another level of...
Accountability?
Another level of communication.
Communication.
Yes, another level of communication. Because, for example, if you're not working together, let's say,
yeah,
and you're just you're just a couple, and you have your separate jobs. When it comes to a problem, or when it comes to a problem in your relationship, there are no specific roles defined.
So, like, who's the boss? Who's the executor?
Yeah, there is like, we are both together in this, and if there is a problem, we solve it together. So I think what makes it more ingewikkeld.
Complicated. She said it in Dutch.
Yes, I can get it in my mind. Complicated. So what makes it more complicated is the fact that you have the specific roles now.
Mm-hmm. When you're working together.
So
you actually learn to define roles a lot more accurately.
Yes. So for example, if you're working together with a colleague, your colleague has a specific role within a sector or job, whatever they're doing. And you have a specific role. So you know very clearly what are your responsibilities, what are your boundaries, what are theirs, how far can you push, whose responsibility is what, if something goes wrong, then who's held accountable. But if you're in a relationship, you don't have that. You don't have that structure.
Or if you're in a supermarket.
What?
You said if you're in a relationship, you don't have those boundaries.
Yeah.
I say, or if you're in a supermarket, you don't have those boundaries. I mean,
as a couple doing grocery shopping?
Yeah, I mean, look, this might sound ridiculous, but who's the boss when it comes to groceries? Really, who's the boss?
Yeah, I mean, it's never talked about, right?
Most men might say, "Oh, my wife is in charge of the groceries," or maybe some woman would say, "Oh, my husband, he's in charge of all the electric tools around the house," and those cliche roles. But why the hell should your wife or your husband be in charge of the groceries? I mean, do they have a special skill? Do they have a special way of navigating through the supermarket?
Or it has been done as a habit.
Habitual role. Yes.
And people go with that role and they just say that's the role of this person.
And so then how do you challenge their role or their decision making? Sometimes it goes naturally, but when you're working together, you don't allow things for just random to happen randomly.
Yes, because
right?
For example, that's a good example you give with grocery shopping, for example. If you are in a relationship and then your partner always does the grocery shopping, I don't think I'm pretty sure that maybe 90% of the people who are having that role division have never sat down and said, "Hey, you're going to be responsible for all the grocery shoppings that we're going to do.
And if you fail, the whole family is going to hold you accountable."
Yes, and in the future, you're going to be the person who's responsible for it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be responsible as the man for all the housework inside. And if the lamp breaks, that's my responsibility.
Yeah.
Like, it's never discussed, right? It's already assumed.
It's assumed or sometimes abandoned. So I can't bother with the groceries. My wife took it over. And so let her do her thing.
Yes, exactly.
And then if you do complain, she gets really upset. And then she says, fuck you. And, you could do it yourself. And then a whole argument breaks out. And then now you have to navigate your way through this argument without any specific guidelines. I mean, who's going to hold who accountable on the basis of what? And that is going to be your entire life. And, well, I think when you're working together, you actually learn a lot better to navigate those nuanced things. Because there are certain skills that you have to develop to be able to work together. And most of them, pretty much all of them, are communication skills.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Now, that's a very good point there. To add on the question of why do people not want to work together, is I think also the simple answer of it might be too difficult.
Oh yes, it is difficult. It might be. It definitely is.
Yeah, people are maybe afraid of the steps that they have to take. They know that now they go into a section where they haven't been yet.
Yes.
They don't have any other people around them who have done the same thing. For example, or they've heard from someone else who has done it and it actually flopped and it didn't go well.
Yeah.
It's the same. It's like saying, "Oh, my friends had a boyfriend, it went wrong,
and so you should
so
not have a boyfriend.
I'm never going to have a boyfriend," you know?
Yeah.
So I think with work, it's also maybe the same. It's people think that it's too hard.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's definitely not easy.
No, it's not easy.
And it is hard. It's harder than having just a normal relationship.
Until you learn how to do it.
Yes.
It's literally like playing the piano or any other instrument. In the beginning, you're going to make random noises. Most of them are just going to be, happening in arguments, not in your bedroom or whatever. But I think at some point you're going to learn to play a harmonious melody together, and that is a very beautiful thing to achieve. And I don't think that most couples who don't work together actually place themselves in an environment where they are forced to learn to communicate at multiple levels, at very nuanced levels, and because in life, you're not my boss, I'm not your boss.
No.
But when we are working together, one person has to be the boss. Whether it's going to be you being head of a department or you in charge of something. If you're doing the finances and you've been doing it as we have agreed on, I might have input here and there, but I'm not going to be bossing you around in that domain unless some disaster has struck. I'm the ultimate responsible director of the company, and then I have to hold you accountable for something that you might have caused. But other than that, you're in charge, and that's clear. So my question to you now is, what do you think that people should learn when they want to work together, and what are the skills involved? Because eventually this is all related to skills, I think. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't shoot.
Pew, pew. The things that people have to learn before they even go into working with their partner, I think builds upon the skills that you would have to learn in any sector. So even if you don't work with your partner, let's say we completely separate that. If you're working with anyone else, you have to be able to clearly communicate what you want to get across. You have to be able to communicate well. You have to be able to...
And what does it mean to communicate well? Because I hate those podcasts when they talk about, generic things. You have to be passionate. So what, in practice, what does it mean, in your opinion, to communicate well, to build a trustworthy relationship with your husband or wife as you're working together?
I think the first part, the biggest part would be simply talking whatever is on your mind. That's something that a lot of people don't do naturally.
True.
And a lot of the times, for example, I feel something, I think of something, but I don't verbalize it. I say it in my head. So I have this conversation
and
in
I
my
can't
head,
hear it, obviously.
And I think he can hear it. So I have this conversation in my head and I'm like, oh, Reza knows what I'm talking about, and I'm sure a lot of people have that. But you're actually not communicating. So saying what you have on your mind and verbalizing that so that the communication is clear from both sides is the first layer. And I think that's not even necessarily related to working together. Is even if you don't work together, you have to build that skill.
Just in life in general.
Being
able to say what's on your mind.
Yes, being able to say not on your mind like in a rude way, like be filterless or something like that. But if something upsets me, I have to instantly be able to talk about that without me hiding it, not talk about it.
Articulate your thoughts in
Yeah.
a way that the other person understands and can do something about it. Actually, if I might open a parenthesis and then you can continue with your answer.
Of course. Yeah.
This is very useful to know. What is the difference between complaining and constructively articulating a problem? The difference is when you are complaining, what you are complaining about cannot be fixed with a specific action and it cannot be measured. So, for example, here is the best example for a complaint. Are you doing this again, really? Or you just can't say what's on your mind, can you? That's a complaint and it's whining. But the opposite of that, which would be constructive articulating the problem, would be, I feel that you are not specifically articulating your thoughts, and when you don't do that, I would never be able to understand what you're feeling or thinking, and in turn, I would never be able to level with you. And then you come up with a request, and the request is, could you please do your best to tell me what's on your mind in a way that I could do something about it? So whatever you say has to be actionable, measurable, and specific. So not just some generic thing like, just speak your mind. Well, that could happen in 10 different ways. But if you just say, speak your mind about what you feel by not using curse words, for example, because when you use them, I get upset. That's specific, it's actionable, it's measurable.
Yeah. And the funny part as well for that is that usually people, when you are not in a relationship with someone, you automatically try better at it. You are better at it.
That's a very good point.
Because you try harder. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you're with your colleague or your boss or your manager even, if you're speaking to your manager, you're not going to just say whatever's on your mind in a way that they don't understand what you mean. You're going to sit, before you go there, you're going to think about it. Yeah. You're going to think to yourself, what am I going to say? How am I going to say this? Is this message coming across well? Mm-hmm. What do I want to say actually? And you're very sensitive to how the manager perceives you. And then when you're in a relationship, usually that kind of goes out of the way, out of the door. And
the politeness disappears.
Yeah.
And the extra effort to be more clear in your communication also
disappears because there is a expectation that it comes automatically. The other person understands you, that you don't need to do that. Yeah. And that's actually another topic that I'm going to talk about later.
Okay.
But that's the fact that when you are working together, you're going to be very different with each other.
Yes.
Than you would normally.
You're going to see sides of each other. But, well, maybe this is another reason why people don't want to work together. Is because they're going to have to play certain roles that they don't want to see. Mm-hmm. Maybe you are used to seeing your husband as your husband, the guy who comes at home, comes home and has dinner with you, buys you maybe some gifts, or takes you out for some fun evening or whatever, or is a good father. But then as soon as he's your boss, well, you might not like that relationship.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to, well, I don't know, maybe listen to him. Or maybe if he's not your boss, but you're his boss, maybe you don't like that. Maybe you don't like to tell your husband or your wife what to do. And you're going to struggle with those roles.
Yeah, the roles, the complication part of the roles is there. There is a complicated side of having multiple roles at the same time.
Yes.
And I think one of your questions was what do you have to develop?
Yeah,
what kind of skills? Mm-hmm. I think one of those skills is actually being aware of that. And working on it. So for example, if we are working together, we have to know that we are now in a setting, we are colleagues. Besides being partners, we are also colleagues. So those roles are predefined. Mm-hmm. But then knowing when which role is activated or not activated could be complicated for some people. Mm-hmm. So for example, if you're at home, let's say we are cooking together and I would like Reza to cut the carrot in a specific way and Reza doesn't cut the carrot in that specific way, I could get very upset because 1 hour before I had I was the manager, for example, at that moment of that project. So I could easily feel like I'm still in that role.
No, you're not.
I could feel like that.
Yeah, I know you could feel, yeah.
So I think And I think people might be struggling with that part as well. And I think the skill that needs to be developed with that is clearly defining the roles that you have within your partnership. So what are my roles? What are your roles? Within this specific project, what am I doing? What are you doing? And you're...
Don't tap the table too much for the mic.
Oh, am I doing that?
Just FYI.
Okay.
Specific roles you were saying.
Yeah. Yeah, so skills development for specific roles, knowing and communicating which roles you have within your relationship and as partners. And it doesn't come naturally. I think a lot of people go into it automatically without having to think about it. Because if you do work somewhere else, if you go and you work for another person, those roles are already defined for you.
Yes.
You don't need to think about
And
them.
you don't question them that easily.
Yeah.
Your manager is just your manager. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But now suddenly your wife is your manager or your husband, and it's like, why should you be my manager?
Yeah.
And also, it's easier to cross the line. It's like, you might say, I'm the managing director here now, and your wife says, no, you're not. You're just being an idiot. And you would never say that to an actual manager unless you want to get fired.
Yeah.
So why do you think people should work together? Why do you think couples should work together? What are they going to gain from it when we are talking about how difficult it is, that you need to have certain levels of skills,
Yeah.
and that it doesn't come naturally?
I think one of the most beautiful things that you could actually have is that you know your partner so well throughout the years that you feel like you're one together. So for example...
And what does that mean, being one together?
What that means is, if I'm working somewhere else, for example, and you're working somewhere else, if two partners are completely in unrelated jobs, mathematically, you are seeing less of each other. So you're seeing, let's say, throughout the week, 7 days a week, you're maybe seeing 3 hours, 4 hours, max 5 if you're lucky. You're seeing 5 hours a day of each other, right?
Not a day, a week.
No, a day. Like, I mean from the moment you wake up.
Oh, right,
From the moment you wake up, you brush your teeth, everything.
Yes. And that's if you're lucky enough to have breakfast in the morning together.
And if you wake up together as well.
Yeah.
That's all of that.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, you get 5 hours a week throughout the week with each other. And then you have maybe the weekends, you know? Maybe you don't have the weekends, maybe you do. But mathematically, that adds up to a specific amount in a year.
Yeah.
Right? So you're actually behind on the amount of hours that you see each other if you would otherwise be seeing each other every day.
Yeah.
And you would be working together. So there is more time and space to actually develop things together.
Okay, so I want you to specify this a little bit further. I can imagine that some people are listening to this and they say, what? More time together with my husband or wife?
I couldn't stand it.
Do I really want that?
Yeah.
Suppose you are saying, yes, you should want that.
Yeah.
Why should I want that?
Because eventually, if you are building a life together, if you are going to live with someone, you're going to have children with that person. You're going to... And I assume that you would love your partner enough that you want the person in your life. It's not like, oh, I'm having this relationship with the person, but I don't actually like them. If that's the case...
She's my wife.
Yeah, if that's the case, then that's not even going to be a successful relationship anyway.
Yes.
So let alone the working together.
Yeah.
But if you are committed to each other and you want a better life together, then obviously you want to get to know the person better. You want to be able to connect better.
And influence each other better.
Yes.
Because I don't like too many personal anecdotes, but one of the things that I think I've learned through working with Mowgli is she has helped me to realize things that I may have not realized ever, because nobody else would just be intimate enough to tell me. And, you could say, well, maybe you have a brother or a sister who's very close to you and they would just tell you as it is. But they are never around you when you're working, unless you have a family business. But most of the time, unless you have a very close colleague that could tell you as it is, they're never going to be as close as your wife or husband is to you. And the beautiful thing is that if you do manage to correct yourself in certain ways, based on their feedback, your life will become better as well, because you are then changing yourself in the context of work, but also in your life.
Yeah. And by simply, and you won't be able to do that. You won't be able to have that influence on each other if you are actually not seeing each other in moments, let's say in desperate moments, or you're not seeing each other in moments where things get really rough
Shared
or tough.
pain, shared gain.
Yes, exactly.
It's like, why should I listen to your stupid feedback if you don't know what I'm going through at work?
Yes, and you also feel distantiated more. So, for example, if I would be working somewhere else and I would come home and I had a trouble with my work, my colleagues would probably relate more to me than my partner does.
Yeah.
Because you're not in that environment.
I don't know who you're talking about. I don't know what's happened.
You haven't seen it. You don't know what I'm talking about. You don't know what it feels like. So I could only go to a specific level with you.
Yeah.
I can't go deeper.
Yeah.
If I want to go deeper, what would I automatically do? I would go towards my colleagues, which is also not a bad thing.
What's even worse is because you can't go deep enough into that conversation, you're just having a shallow conversation with your husband or wife, and that's your 1 hour dinner time gone, and then it's time to go to sleep. And now another day wasted in a meaningless conversation that didn't add up to anything.
Yes, and a lot of couples say that, right? A lot of couples say, like, oh, me and my partner have this very shallow relationship where we can't even talk about things. Yeah. So, for example, you're, as you say, at the dinner table and you talk about, oh, how was your day, honey? Yeah, this colleague came and she had this, and then this happened, and then that, and then the weather was beautiful. And you're basically having a chit-chat moment. Yeah. And that's about it. Yeah. You can't go deeper. And then people think, well, why can't I go deeper? It's because you physically don't have the time. You don't have the time to go deeper.
You don't have the time, but you're also not in the same context.
Yes.
Yeah, so, you know, you might even have enough time, but Mowgli goes to salsa classes sometimes. And, you know, that's interesting for me up to 15 minutes max. And so she would never be able to have an in-depth conversation with me about the salsa class because I don't have anything invested in that class. That's just an hour of your week. Yeah. And, you know, whatever. But if it was something that I was equally invested in, say I would go to salsa classes as well. Yeah. Then we could talk about the personalities there. Did you notice how quickly the music turned from something really good into something bad? And then we have a whole philosophical topic about what music, you know, sparks up the best salsa session and all of that. And so we can't do that now, and we don't because we don't have the same context. Yes, we don't have that in common, and we don't have the interest in that. Yeah. And I think maybe a more important thing is being able to see the beautiful side of if you have worked together. So, for example, if you do something very big together, let's say our first launch for International School of Tailoring with the bundles. Yeah. So that's something we suffered together. Yes. We had sleepless nights together. We went through the whole process together. And then to be able to actually celebrate that after together is so much stronger than if he would be doing it on his own and I would be doing something else. And also to remember it together. Yes. Because your life is going to be, you know, an album of memories, right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then when you talk about those stories, we talked about those memories as if they are ours, because they are actually ours. It's not like I've made this memory, you've made this memory. Yeah. And then in a group setting, if you talk about it, it's your memory. It's not my memory anymore. Yeah. And I think this is going to relate back. I'm going to go one level deeper into philosophy here, but I'll try to keep it practical. Most of the days and the moments that you live are going to be gone. So yesterday, it's gone. Everything that remains from that day is either some material good that you keep, let's say something you bought yesterday, or some gift that you received, or a memory. Now, we people, our self-image and who we are in life depends on the chains of memories that we collect. And one of the reasons why we often like to keep the people in our lives, even if they are, you know, ruthless bastards, you know, some people who are growing in broken homes, they still cannot leave their, crappy family members behind, because when you lose that chain of memories, you lose your sense of self and your identity. And so naturally you have to build a new identity for yourself. Now imagine that all the memories that you have with your husband or wife can be amplified in many more victories and many more pains. And it is a fact that people bond through shared pain and shared gain. And so if you are thinking of, well, what am I going to gain from working with my partner? It's going to be a stronger sense of identity and self, but also probably a much richer relationship that both people can acknowledge its existence. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Back to the practical world. By the way, this is also an interesting fact, since we were on the first episode. Workingwithmypartner.com was available, not taken as a domain name.
I think workingwithmypartner.anything was
Working
available.
with my partner at Gmail was available. Working with my partner Instagram was available. And working with my partner YouTube was also available.
Yeah.
How is it possible that in a world this big with so many bots and people and influencers and podcasters, that was not taken? I think there's definitely a neglected domain here that you have successfully now started to occupy. But it tells you something, because we never got recommendations of workingwithmypartner.com is not available, but working with my 12367b underscore partner is available. It wasn't like that.
Yeah, and to add to what you're saying actually is that there isn't much information out on the internet either about it.
Right.
And for example, if you are looking up any books related to psychology, self-help, any topic you would be looking for, you would find on the internet.
Yeah.
But working with your partner was literally 2 books written about.
That you found.
That existed, not that I found. Like the whole of internet gave me only 2 books as an option.
Right.
Of which one I couldn't find.
Oh, right.
And one was for sale in the US. And it was a second-hand book that someone else has bought.
Yeah.
Because the person was not famous at all. Like not known at all.
The author.
Yeah, the author.
Right. So
it's a fairly unknown topic.
Mowgli, I have another question. I think this is very important for the viewers and the listeners.
Yes.
Say we want to work together.
Yeah.
Or a couple wants to work together. But they just don't have the same backgrounds. Yeah. Like you said, one is a restaurant owner, one is a physician.
Yeah.
Okay. How on earth can they work together if they don't have, if they have a desire to work together, but they just don't have the same background? What should they do to find common ground? Should they start a new business, or should one of them just migrate to the career of the other?
Well, of course, that depends on what the careers are, first of all, because you can't do that with everything. But what I do think is that in the age of now, where we are living now, there are many ways of combining things. Combining functions, jobs, or whatever. So I think the first thing is condensing the job or the role that you have into what does it actually mean? What is it that you want from that job? So for example, if I am a...
So looking at the not the task, but the purpose.
Yes, the purpose of the job.
Can you give an example, something practical?
Yeah. So for example, let's say you're a physiotherapist.
Right.
The essence of the job is eventually helping people.
Yeah.
Is a big part of it.
Yeah.
So people...
Just helping people.
Just helping people is already the very broad part of it.
Helping people with a physically with
a physical
health, body, something
physically. Yeah. Helping people on a physical field.
Yeah, with muscles.
Muscle.
I was thinking more muscle.
Muscle. Muscles. Yeah, you're helping people with muscles. Yeah. Something with muscles.
Let me help you with my muscles. All right. Come on, Mowgli, focus.
Yes. So that on its own, if you know that that's something that you like and you want to do, it's very helpful.
Right.
Because you're not a physiotherapist because you want to be a physiotherapist most of the time.
Specifically
Yeah.
a physiotherapist.
A
For
lot
the
of
sake of being a physiotherapist.
Yeah, a lot of the times people land into a job
Yeah.
or fall into a job
Yeah.
because they know the job. They go into it, they discover it, they go further and further and further, and then they stay in that field.
Yeah.
But they're not set on, no, this is what I want. Unless you're like Einstein or you're someone who's like...
I'm sure even those kind of people, they eventually just followed their interests.
Yes.
They didn't make up a job and then just say, I just want to be a physician.
Yes, exactly.
For the sake of being...
Yeah. So if you know what your interest is, first of all, and what the interest is of your partner, you can then start to brainstorm about how can we actually combine it? In what form does it have?
Yes, I do need a physiotherapist today, I must say.
And muscle.
To help me with my muscle.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. And now
Physiotherapists?
how do they combine that,
Yeah.
the purpose of the task, with the purpose of the other task? So are you saying that you should think about your purpose and then combine purposes? So you want to help people.
Yeah.
I want to build ships. How
Yeah.
can we build ships that help people, or how can we help people to build ships?
Not
kind of things?
necessarily. No, you have to look. I think you have to look at what kind of roles and what functions are within this, that something that you want to create. So, for example, if you are creating, let's say you want to create a business, okay, and you have one person who likes helping people.
Yeah.
When it comes to a physical part.
Yeah.
And you have another person who loves to build things. Okay, is very creative, loves to build stuff. So if you put both of those together and you build something up, you will indefinitely need someone who's very good with people.
Yes.
And you will need that other person who can build the things, because otherwise you don't have the product, for example.
Right.
So you can actually use the interest of both people to build up that one company.
Okay.
And then you have to look at what kind of functions or tasks do both actually like to do.
But isn't it the case that most functions are just made up as you build or develop the company?
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
Isn't it more important? Isn't it more important to first establish the purpose?
Yeah.
So like you want to help people.
Yeah.
I like to do gardening.
Yeah.
And I feel my purpose in gardening is to get closer to nature, say. And then we come up with some purpose together that helps people to connect with nature.
Yeah.
Or we get closer to nature by helping people, something like that. And then whatever tasks you're going to come up with, well, that depends on the specific project or company or goal that you set up together, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Isn't it better to do that first, then to start with the tasks?
Yeah, I guess the task part is also, it comes automatically once you have established what you want to do. What is the business going to do, for example?
Right.
Then the task will automatically fall in. That will be added to it.
Right.
And I think your question goes back to what should people do if their backgrounds are very different and they want to work together.
Yes.
I don't even think we need to go there. Yet. I think we should start focusing on the people who are, even people who are in the same background but choose not to work together.
Right.
Because that's a level closer.
Well, what have you got to say about that?
Is where the conversation originally started. And that's where we were talking about, why do actually people choose not to work together? What's the reason what are the common beliefs? What are the cliches? What are they afraid of? What are you guys afraid of if you would be thinking about working with your partner? What's one reason that you could think of and you could say like, no way, this is not for me. Or no, this is the reason why I wouldn't do it. And I think maybe if we go into that, you would quickly get also the people who are even in the same sector and don't work together.
And why do you think they are not working together? Is it because of the cliche reasons?
I think it's not even the cliche reasons. I think it's unknown. it's not as assumed.
Not well thought through, perhaps.
Yeah, not well thought through. That's a good one. And it's also not the first thing that comes in your mind because you don't have other people around you who have done the same. It's fairly new.
Role models?
Role models. For example, well, I say it's new, but a lot of people have family businesses.
I mean, family businesses have been the norm for like centuries.
Yeah. So family businesses exist, but no one sees family business as working with your partner. It's more like we fall into it.
The mother and the father of the father of the father and the mother and the mother of the father took over this, and now we have inherited it.
Exactly, and usually it's usually the case that the wife then just joins because she happened to not do anything else, and then she just joins the family, she stays in there, and then they have the family business. But it's not an active effort of we are going to be working together. It's more we fell into it, and now we have to just continue. Right.
It's not a conscious decision.
No, it's not exactly. It's an unconscious decision, and you just fell into it. So as you say, the family business thing is alive. It's well known. But to be honest, I think it's also because finding a partner on its own is already hard.
For life.
The level of commitment you have to already have.
Well, hold on. This is a very interesting point that you are raising. I think in today's age, people let go of each other a lot faster because the level of commitment that they need to have is not bonded as strongly by a shared goal. Whereas when you set up a business together and you really have to live of that business, the both of you, you're not just going to split in the first trouble that you get yourself into.
Yeah, usually people see that as having kids. They see that as a substitution.
Some people use kids as a joint goal project, but I think that's a very different subject. What I want to say really is that people often break relationships because they're not bonded by something that goes beyond the whims of the two. Whereas I think me and you have had many arguments before. Again, I don't like anecdotes, but I think it's useful.
No,
it's a useful one here. You and I have had many arguments, and there have been once, twice, maybe 3 times that at least I, in my mind, thought, that's it. That's the end for me. But then within like a minute, I thought, no way. Because that means that the whole thing is going to fall apart. The whole building is going to fall apart. The whole project is going to collapse. And then I have to then build a whole new life without you. You have to build a whole new life without me. You're going to have to find another job. Everything that we have built, it's not a job when you're setting up a business together.
No.
That's a career. There's so many layers that you have built. You don't just switch from that. Maybe if I'm working at some restaurant, I could just get fired and say, the hell with it. I'll just go to another restaurant.
Yeah.
But when it's your restaurant, the amount of networking that you had to do, fundraising, finding maybe an investor, the late nights, the cleaning, the planning, the arguments, the fights, the victories, all of that will go. And I think you would think twice before letting that go when you're in it together.
Yeah, you're more invested in it.
The problem is with kids, and again, I don't want to go into that often, but when kids are not a reason for parents not to separate.
Although a lot of people do use it as a reason.
If anything, kids are more often a reason for people to separate and to have leverage, because then one can say, no, the kid is going to stay with me, or I'm going to be a better guardian, than to say, look, this child's life is in danger. He or she is going to be prone to trauma. Let's make everything work so that we could be a family. But I think with business is slightly different because you don't earn with your kid. You do earn with your business. And for you to breathe at all and live and have a roof above your head, you need to earn. And I think that goes one level more foundational than to just have a kid and have a job and split the hell with it. I'll see the kid 2 days.
You're more dependent on each other as well.
I think that's a constructive dependency, because if your business is delivering money to both of you, and we are going to have an argument. Well, we have to resolve that. So before we
because
continue,
the level of now we're not just partners. It's like a level on top of it, because we can't just put ourselves and our agreement above that.
Yes.
So we're below that, actually. So when we do have an argument, we have to fix that as soon as possible.
Yes.
Because otherwise other things will be suffering. And I think that's a good example as well. For example, that's a good example. For example, at work, for example, sometimes we get into a fight and it can get very heated and we can go into debate and we can really stretch it. But knowing that eventually the work will be suffering will reduce our stress on, okay, we have to fix this issue right now, because the work is then more important. There is another priority. And if you don't have that, then it will be just kept at the level of our relationship.
And to specify what Mowgli's saying, she doesn't mean that, we should just stop fighting because we are losing work hours.
No.
What she actually also means is, no, we have to stop arguing.
We have to successfully end the argument.
We have to resolve it so that it doesn't happen again, because we can't have this fight more than once, more than twice.
Because everything else is suffering.
Because everything else will suffer from it. So you become more systematic in your approach towards fixing problems.
Yeah.
And if you become good at fixing problems, well then life problems are just going to be another problem. And so I think that those are definitely some benefits that you're going to gain.
Yeah, definitely. Also with the problem part you say is, if we're able to fix small problems at work, and we have found a mechanism of how to solve the problems at work, then incorporating those in our personal life is so much easier.
Joint skills. You build joint skills. So whereas maybe one person is good at something, now both of you have to become good at it. Yeah. And I think the main overall skill is communication. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. And I think, as you say as well, it's a bit of a cliche thing, communication. We will definitely go into it more. Like, what does it mean?
Yeah,
which
the
parts?
Specifics of the communication.
Specifics, because it's not just communication as a whole.
Yeah.
It's multiple things. And especially if you are from a background where you don't have it. And the funny part as well is, with communication, a lot of people struggle in general with communication. Even if they don't work together. Even if you're working in a different profession.
Yeah.
You still have those issues
at
work. But you don't bring them home because you think, they're just like they're work problems.
Well, you do bring them home. You bring the inability to communicate home.
No, what I mean is you think you don't bring them home.
Oh,
in your mind, you're like, I'm not bringing them home.
Yeah, that's just something for work. But it's also something for life. That's what you mean.
Yeah. Because if you're at home and you're thinking about how you failed at work from a communication skill or whatever, it's still the same.
Yeah.
So working with your partner is pretty much the same.
Yeah. It's
just that now you have the opportunity to develop it together with the other person who actually cares about you.
Yeah, that's true.
Instead of someone who's you're just your manager, for example.
Now, random thought. I think you should think about the setting of your podcast.
Yeah.
Because I think this setting that we are in at the moment is very feminine.
Feminine?
And I'm not saying this as a bad thing, but I think there are plenty of guys who can benefit from this conversation. But maybe when they see the setting like we are in now, which is not your main setting, this is my mom's house, we are here visiting. But I think you should think about it, because if this becomes like a woman-to-woman podcast, you're gonna lose 50% of the audience.
And then only women will be working together.
Yeah, well, one is that, but also I think this should be both for men and women.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
It shouldn't be. I think the viewers shouldn't be under the impression that this is a ladies' podcast.
Mm-hmm. And except for the light, what else gives you the
I don't know. It's a very girl. Maybe it's my mom's house. That's why.
Oh yeah, and it was Christmas, so the lights are Christmassy.
Yes, but it just crossed my mind, because I think this is something that it's for both men and women.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And I don't care if you're a man and a man or a woman and a woman, but I think it shouldn't be skewed towards like, hey ladies, let's talk about your struggle with your husband, or it shouldn't be like that.
No. This podcast is not about that.
It's about building a relationship together
with your partner, whoever that may be.
Yeah, I think you had it you had put it well on your website. Building a strong life together.
Stronger life
through
together.
Working with your partner.
Yeah. And a partner needs two people. So for all the men out there who think they are not needed in this.
Yeah, and the woman.
And the woman, because you said girly. I
Yeah.
thought maybe.
Yeah, I
that
thought I
part-
was sitting in a very girly setting, but I thought, well, that there's nothing wrong with that unless it starts to only attract women. And then I thought, well, that defeats the purpose, because if you want to build a successful relationship through work, you also need to have the men on board.
Yeah.
And you definitely don't want the men to think, oh, that's just some girly concept working with my partner.
Yeah.
You know, this is like, life is tough, man. And right?
Yeah.
Life is tough. It's honestly, and we make it tougher for ourselves. And so you need both people on board, I think.
Yeah. I agree. I completely agree.
So Mowgli, what's your next episode going to be about?
I don't know. I mean, this episode was also like kind of improvised. It was not
I
very
do
much...
think it was, I hope it was valuable, but I do think that I felt I was in a meaningful conversation.
Me too. Yeah.
And I
agree.
hope that the viewers...
I think it was also maybe a
experienced
bit more... It wasn't very much topic per topic. So it went fluid, one subject into another.
Yeah, maybe
So-
you as the viewer should let us know what kind of specific topics you would like Mowgli to cover.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I'm only a guest on this podcast,
My
even
forever
though I'm a
guest.
very talkative guest. Sometimes I make it seem like it's my podcast. It definitely isn't.
It's a guest you will see more often.
Yeah, I am eventually the husband, and so
Not even yet.
and so
We're not married yet.
We're not married, but we are.
I'll call him my husband anyway. You will read that. You will read actually a part of that in my blog on the
Yes.
website.
Yeah, I mean, FYI, we've been together for 15 years, so.
Yes. And we've known each other since we were 8.
There are plenty of there's many people who call themselves married, but they split after 2 years.
Yes.
We
Agree.
so we are practically married.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think I'll let you do the asking.
Yes. So, as we said, hopefully the topics were not too random, going into one from one to the other. And if there are any topics or any questions that you have in mind, and you think maybe, I would like to know more about that because there's pretty much nothing about it on the internet, let me know. Let us know. And in the next episode, we could probably incorporate those topics in there. And thank you for joining in today.
Thank you.
Yes, I hope you like it. And we'll do more of these podcasts. So stay tuned. As I'm speaking, I'm thinking, did I actually click on record or not?
What?
There.
Did you?
I don't know. Shall I check?
You should check.
Let me double check. First episode.
Okay, so good. We can just continue.
Yes. All good. That's what happens when you do your first episode.